Welcome to Legal AF. Ben Meiselas here. Michael Popok will be here in just a little bit. We're both on vacation, so we're going to be coordinating this episode coast to coast. I'm out here in actually the beautiful Carmel by the Sea, my first time visiting it here in California. That's why you've seen this new background. Michael Popok is out there in Europe. I'll let him describe specifically his location if he wants to. But we've got a lot to discuss because while we've been able to get away for a little bit, although my vacation's coming to an end right after this show, there's been a lot of critical legal news, big legal news and updates that we've been talking about here on Legal AF for quite some time. I mean, the biggest, obviously, this week, the criminal prosecution of two-time Olympic canoeist David Hearn was dismissed by the Department of Justice. This is Donald Trump, Jean Carroll, Doug Burgum's complete fraudulent, fabricated, frivolous, doesn't even do it justice, prosecution of David Hearn, saying that he was a vandal. He was the Reflecting Pool vandal, and he and these vandals took a box cutter, and they went right to the middle of the Reflecting Pool, and they cut a 350-yard cut, and they started ripping it apart, and there's communist vandals, right? I mean, it's absurd. Donald Trump did a no-bid contract to one of the Mar-a-Lago buddies of his. They did a horrible job with the Reflecting Pool. Then as they were doing the Reflecting Pool, Trump drove a freaking motorcade over the Reflecting Pool. That's not exactly going to make things better when you're dealing with cracks and issues of cracks in the algae when you drive your whole motorcade over it. And Trump's solution was just, I'm going to paint the Reflecting Pool blue, Reflecting Pool, paint it blue. Everything's going to be amazing. And when it turned out that there was massive amounts of algae and it was an embarrassment, Donald Trump does what he always does, which is just lie about everything. And so they did this criminal prosecution of David Hearn. They went to a grand jury with fabricated information. Jean Carroll is the United States Attorney for Washington, D.C. She should never have had that job. I mean, Trump should not have his job. All these people should not have their job. Criminally prosecuting Hearn for a felony. A felony of just destruction of property. The case was in D.C. Superior Court, and the Justice Department dismissed it. I want to go through the filing of the dismissal. I want to do it in a very meticulous way, but I also want to discuss on this episode, though, that not only does David Hearn now have a massive lawsuit against the Trump regime, against the Department of Justice, against the federal government. I think he's got a massive defamation lawsuit against Fox because state regime media Fox, they were pushing the Trump vandal story over and over again. Jean Carroll you want to talk about actual malice, which would be, or recklessness, which would be the standard. Not even sure David Hearn would even have to, it could just be kind of basic negligence. I'm not sure David Hearn is a limited public figure or a public figure at all. So the standard might actually just be, even less than having to show actual malice. Because, David Hearn's not an Olympic canoeist anymore. But in any event, I think that David Hearn would be able to meet what we call the actual malice standard, which is like intentional malice or kind of a gross recklessness, because Pirro, a former Fox host, laundered the lies that he was this vandal who was ripping up the Reflecting Pool, that he was a felon. And she went on Fox. She went on, the various Fox shows, Jesse Waters and others, to spew these venomous lies. We'll talk about that. And I think it's also worth reflecting also, when we talk about, no pun intended or pun intended, of this Reflecting Pool fabrication. I mean, this Trump regime that was fabricating a Reflecting Pool case, a Reflecting Pool fabricated case. I mean, these are the people out there who are saying, we've turned over all of the Epstein files, right? All of the Epstein files are out there. Trust us, trust us. We're out there doing full transparency. Really? You're the Reflecting Pool people? You want us to trust you on the way you've handled the Epstein files? I mean, these are the people who are running America into the ground with this catastrophic and unlawful war in Iran. Trust us. Negotiations are happening. Negotiations here. Oh, we're going to bomb the hell out of them. We're going to, what would Trump say this week? We're going to bomb the effing S out of them. Anyone who says we're going to bomb the effing S in them does not have the temperament, okay, for that office. But that's the probably biggest understatement, temperament of Donald Trump. I mean, the guy's a freaking fascist. Psychotic individual. This is, this entire DOJ, by the way, the rot is at the top. Previously Bondi, now Todd Blanche. So we're going to talk in this episode also, though, about Todd Blanche's confirmation. It's being held up because Donald Trump refuses to allow there to be any writing that eliminates the so-called anti-weaponization fund, which is the $1.776 billion to the January 6th insurrectionists. But the reality is that Trump doesn't really care about them. He's pretending he cares about them as a way to kind of gin up extremist support for himself. It's always about Donald Trump, to cause, his extremists to maybe commit violence in the future. Look, I'll get you this money. I'll get you this money. It'll be right around the corner. But Trump doesn't really care if they actually get money or not. What Trump cares about is the other part of the settlement that Trump made with himself in the frivolous $10 billion lawsuit that Trump in his individual capacity filed against the federal government, alleging that his IRS documents were leaked when he was in office during his first term, when he was in charge of the IRS, that a contractor, not even an employee, leaked hundreds of thousands of people's tax returns. Trump's was one of the people in those tax returns. So Trump says that I deserve $10 billion. No, the other 100,000 people whose returns leaked, they shouldn't get any money. By the way, the statute of limitations time barred Donald Trump's case. He had no case to begin with. Even let's just assume he had a case for the IRS improperly leaking. There was a data hack, and that the information was leaked. The max damages you can get, it's capped at $1,000. That would be the max. That would be your best day in court. But it was time barred. It's a BS case. It's a bogus case. But the thing that Trump built into the settlement was that the government could never audit his taxes ever from the date of the settlement going back. And he can never be subject to criminal investigations or civil investigations or any inspection of him not paying taxes from the date of the settlement agreement going back. Now, there were some people who said, well, Trump's under audit for $100 million or hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes he didn't pay, that he's been fighting the IRS for decades. And I've said, no, it's actually way worse than that, because we know Trump's made $4 billion, $5 billion in these quid pro quo scams that he's been doing, the 21,000 stock trades, right? Since he's been in office 1 year, he's made $4 to $5 billion, grossly abusing. He's an abuser, grossly abusing his position in the Oval Office, where he's supposed to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. No, he's destroyed our laws, and only thing he's taking care of is taking care that himself is taken care of in the form of these quid pro quo, these quid pro quos for himself. It's been utterly despicable. But think about the amount of taxes you'd have to pay on $4 billion, $5 billion. Let's say capital gains, 25% tax on that. Let's just say it's ordinary income. Do you think Trump really makes the distinction between capital gains or ordinary income? Dude's not paying taxes, in my opinion, period. But 37%, he'd be in the highest tax bracket, right? And so Trump could potentially owe $1 billion, $1.5 billion in taxes, and he could use this agreement as a way not to pay his taxes. And so you have Senator Tillis and Senator Cornyn say, look, we'll approve Blanche as the Attorney General. He's Trump's pick to be the AG. He sits at the top of all of this, Todd Blanche. But we need a written document that says the settlement agreement between Trump and the government that creates the anti-weaponization fund and gives Trump this tax immunity forever. Put it in writing that that's gone. Just put it in writing, just one sentence. Say it's hereby eliminated. You've made the oral put it in writing. And Trump refuses to do that. And according to Cornyn, MAGA Republican senator from Texas, or Republican senator, he wasn't MAGA enough. And Tillis, the Republican senator from North Carolina, both of whom Donald Trump destroyed their careers because Trump supported, they weren't MAGA enough. So Trump picked Ken Paxton in Texas, and then Trump selected or Trump pushed out Tillis in North Carolina. And now you have the former RNC chair, Whatley, who's running for that seat in North Carolina against former Democratic Governor Cooper and Cooper's crushing Whatley in North Carolina now. Likely get a Democrat in that North Carolina seat. And don't sleep on Texas, because despite MAGA doing Talafrico, he's a vegan, he's 6 genders, that stuff's not working right now in Texas. Not working anywhere. People are like, dude, these are serious times, man. Y'all are a bunch of con artists, MAGA grifters. You destroyed our economy. You've lied about everything. You said everything would be cheaper on day one. You made all of these promises. You lied about all this stuff, and we're suffering right now. And we're in never-ending wars. We're not doing this Talafrico, 6 gender, bathroom, penis, vagina stuff. Like, we're not doing that stuff right now, okay? Like, we're not doing this MAGA weird shit. Excuse my language. Like, stuff is real. Things are real right now, and people are really suffering, so stop with it. And so Talarico is up in Paxton 3 in the latest Fox poll, state regime media poll. But anyway, you have Cornyn and Tillis saying put it in writing. Cornyn and Tillis say that Blanche wants to put it in writing, but basically, first they said somebody in Trump's orbit isn't letting it happen, and then they basically said, okay, Trump's the one who's not letting it happen. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the ruling in the Reflecting Pool case. I really want to go through the order. It's the motion to dismiss from Trump's DOJ itself. And I'm going to pass it over to Popok, where I want to talk about updates regarding Trump's continued cover-up of the child sex trafficking ring, the Epstein files, and how we have Katie Phang here at the Midas Touch Network. She's been fighting for the release of the Epstein files, what took place in Judge Sullivan's courtroom, where the DOJ was forced to turn over files for Judge Sullivan's in-camera review. I want to talk about this Kash Patel defamation lawsuit and what happened to it. It didn't go good for MAGA. Hint, hint. Never, these people file the most ridiculous lawsuits, and they abuse the process. So Popok will talk about that, and Popok will hit some other topics. So let's just get into the motion to dismiss filed by Jean Carroll. Reminder, Jean Carroll is the top federal prosecutor in Washington, D.C. Okay, first she charged David Hearn with misdemeanor destruction of property. Then she went to a grand jury and presented evidence to get a felony indictment against David Hearn. A felony. Put him to prison for a very long period of time. The case went before the D.C. Superior Court, not federal court, because just DC district, federal, the property in DC technically is a DC Superior Court. I won't bore you with the technicalities. You know that Jean Carroll and all of these Trump regime officials went on Fox and all these networks, and they said, look, here's what happened. The vandals did it. And I'll go pull out some receipts in a moment right there. And, anybody who's just exercising common sense saw what was happening. We saw Trump put the motorcade over the reflecting pool. We know that painting it blue is not going to make a difference. We saw the shoddy construction work taking place before our eyes. We saw in real time as the paint started to peel off. We saw the algae coming back. We saw them pour in the hydrogen peroxide. Like, we saw what was happening as Trump was rushing before America 250 to make this thing, look American flag blue. He was obsessed with it. All he did was talk about reflecting pool. And we saw the algae. We knew what was happening. I mean, we didn't have to wait to see the Department of Interior documents and the National Park Service documents about what they were observing, because we observed it. Like, this was happening before our eyes. We were all witnesses to it, right? I mean, look, we had Aaron Parnas and Scott McFarlane and Luke Riddell and others from our, and Pablo Manriquez and others go there. Like, we were showing you original images, and there were lots of other people doing great work getting original footage, but like, we were all witnesses to what was happening as well. However, Pirro plowed ahead with this prosecution of David Hearn. And now she filed a motion to dismiss. And now sometimes when we see these motions to dismiss, we're used to seeing, just a one sentence, motion to dismiss in the interest of justice. Now in DC Superior Court, you got to put a little more meat on the bones, if you will, in terms of what the motion to dismiss says. You can't just do one line, right? If you bring an indictment, you have to explain to the court why you're dismissing your own criminal case, because the court wants to know. But you didn't need 20 pages. Like, this was a 20-page where Pirro basically laid out the Department of Interior, blamed them and said, the National Park Service, Burgum, they screwed us. But in doing that, she also kind of laid out Donald Trump, because this was Donald Trump telling Doug Burgum to do this. At the end of the day, this was coming from Trump. And also she laid herself out here, because when you're the prosecutor or you're the lawyer and you're bringing a case, any lawyer, you're supposed to conduct the diligence. So what Jean Carroll says in this motion, which I'll go over with you, is she says, look, I was deceived by the Department of Interior and Doug Burgum. We asked for documents. They gave us an initial witness report. So we rushed to the grand jury to get this indictment. And then after we got the indictment, the Department of Interior said, oh, well, we got these other documents. We've been asking them for weeks to bring it to get it to us, Then finally, this past week, the Department of Interior gave us the documents. We've reviewed it, and it wasn't vandals. It was the bad construction work. It was the company that got the no bid contract, didn't know how to do a good job, and they screwed it all up. And all the internal documents reflect that they were the ones who screwed it up. So that's what actually happened. But here's the thing. You aren't forced to bring this case immediately or urgently. The statute of limitation on this case is over a year, 2 years, probably longer. So you, as the prosecutor, could have said, you know what, pause. I'm not going to prosecute this guy, David Hearn, this two-time Olympic canoeist, right away. We're going to conduct an investigation. We don't need to we don't need to prosecute yet. Let's wait. Hey, Department of Interior, you know what? I'm going to send some agents. I'm the top United States attorney in D.C., one of the most powerful entities in the freaking world in the law, other than maybe the Southern District of New York, which the Trump regime has harmed. I mean, being the United States attorney from D.C. is right up there. I've got FBI agents. I've got limitless resources. You should, although Trump's gutted the DOJ. I'm going to send my people to go to the Department of Interior. And let's get the documents. Oh, can we check your databases? Let's do meetings. Let's make sure we have everything before we bring an indictment and go public with all of this and say vandals, 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 because any common sense would tell you that it wasn't vandals that did it. And so now you have Jean Carroll saying, aha, now we got these documents and the Department of Interior deceived us. Let's take a look at this motion. Take a look at the final page 19, if you will, of this motion to dismiss. This was Jean Carroll's motion to dismiss her own indictment against David Hearn, accusing him of felony destruction of property for being the vandal that Donald Trump and she and everybody were talking about. Let me just read it to you. Almost immediately after work was initially completed, peeling was observed along the pool perimeter. The NPS engineers' June 11, 2026 email, that's National Park Service engineers, June 11, 2026 email stated that the cause of the damage was contractor error via overspray, that the peeled lining would not float, and that the peeling would not impact the strength of the liner. The engineer's report also suggested that removing the liner at the perimeter would have had no negative impact on the economic value of the liner. Moreover, the July 20th, 2026 inspection by contractors confirmed that the overspray and delamination had occurred, again pointing to contractor error. Finally, a recent visual inspection showed damage throughout the reflecting pool, even in the middle of the pool, where a vandal would not likely attempt to peel the lining. Pause. Isn't that what Donald Trump said? The vandal went right in the middle and did it right there, peeled the lining right in the middle. Given all of this newly discovered information, it is difficult to attribute the widespread damage to the reflecting pool to vandalism, let alone to establish that fact beyond a reasonable doubt. For all of these reasons, the government, in the exercise of its prosecutorial discretion, respectfully requests that the indictment be dismissed without prejudice. And when you go through this motion as well, what Jean Carroll also says is that in general, this could not be caused by vandals. Not just David Hearn, but in general, that the whole vandal narrative is false. That's what she specifically says in this filing. And who was pushing the vandal narrative? Her, Doug Burgum, Donald Trump. So a few things need to happen, and let's talk about it when we come back from the break. But ultimately, this all comes from the top, Todd Blanche. And when I talk about Cornyn and Tillis, they're not like great actors in all of this. They're doing the bare minimum. They still act like Blanche is qualified. Really? You think Blanche oversaw this, right? The way the DOJ works. The Attorney General oversees all of the different offices. The D.C. federal office of Jean Carroll reports up to Blanche, the same way the Southern District of New York, which is covering up the Epstein files, reports up to Blanche, right? And so Blanche is responsible for this too, as responsible as Pirro, as responsible for the fact that there have been 15 to 16,000 cases that have been thrown out, that judges have found that the DOJ has engaged in misconduct, has not provided evidence in cases that just relate to like habeas petitions and immigration. Throughout the country right now, you have the grand jury proceedings tainted by misconduct. All throughout Chicago, for example. After the grand jury was, after there was grand jury misconduct found there regarding the protesters at the detentions, the terrorism center, the federal judges are finding that the grand jury process in general has been tainted in almost all of the cases. We're seeing case after case after case, grand juries being tainted. Right. And this Trump regime continues to bring these ultra frivolous cases. Don't even get me started. I mean, on the first Comey case with the grand jury, they didn't even have the right. Lindsay Halligan, who wasn't even allowed to be in the grand jury room. She was pretending to be a U.S. attorney of Virginia when she was not even the U.S. attorney. And then the new case involving Comey, see all the evidence that Comey was providing there, how Donald Trump's hands-on in all of this. Donald Trump's out there telling the FBI to do surveillance on Comey. Donald Trump's out there leading all this stuff. All of this goes up to Trump. All of this goes up to Trump as well. All right, let's take our first quick break of the show. A reminder, if you or someone you know has been injured in a car accident, a trucking accident, any accident caused by the negligence of someone, reach out to Popok's firm. Give a call to Popok's firm. We'll put it right there as well so you can see it. We'll have a link in the description below of where you could contact Popok, but reach out to the Popok firm. Also, make sure you subscribe to the Legal AF YouTube channel and the Legal AF Substack. We'll be right back. And when we come back, I want to talk more about repercussions, and I want to talk about Blanche, and then I'm going to pass it over to Popok. Let's take our first break.
In business, I'm always trying to make smart, informed decisions and get the best for less. But if I'm honest, I haven't looked at my life insurance policy in way too long. Is my coverage enough given today's economic uncertainty? Am I overpaying? And if my health has changed, am I still getting the right protection? That's exactly why I'm finally taking a look with SelectQuote. For over 40 years, SelectQuote has helped more than 2 million Americans find the right life insurance policy for their unique needs. Their licensed agents compare policies from top-rated carriers in as little as 15 minutes, working for you, not the insurance companies, and they do it for free. They can even help many people with pre-existing health conditions get the right life insurance for you for less and save more than 50% at selectquote.com/legalaf. Save more than 50% on term life insurance at selectquote.com/legalaf today to get started. That's selectquote.com/legalaf. I was a senior executive in my career. Today's executives are more threatened, more exposed, and more vulnerable than ever before. Corporations spend billions on workplace security, But what happens when a threat finds your executives outside the office? Here's why that matters. 70% of attacks on executives happen at home or away from the office. And Iron Wall understands a terrifying reality. If someone has a grievance against your company, the first place they turn to is Google. It takes about 5 minutes to find one of your executives' home addresses online. And if their personal information is sitting on the open web, they're far too easy to find. You're leaving them unprotected. The team at Iron Wall knows this better than anyone. They've protected some of the most targeted executives and individuals on the planet for almost 2 decades. As a white glove enterprise security service, they protect your people with continuous personal data removal, proactive prevention tools, and emergency support. So when someone goes looking for your executives, Iron Wall ensures they hit a dead end. So here's what to do. Go to ironwall.com/legalaf, fill in the quick form, and request your free risk assessment. Their team will show you just how exposed your executives are and how to lock it down before a threat reaches their front door. That's ironwall.com/legalaf. Stop online threats before they become real-world attacks. Check for the link in the show notes below.
Welcome back to Legal AF. Thank you to all of our sponsors. We are so grateful for them. They make this show possible. Support our sponsors. So, look, I'm sure you may have seen this morning. If not, Donald Trump out there attacking Jean Carroll right now. Donald Trump posting, I disagree 100% with Jean Carroll, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, on the Reflecting Pool. I don't know what she was thinking. To me, it was a pure case of vandalism. That included the grass, which had a big 8647 emblazoned in giant letters on it, and other elements of the surrounding area. There may have been some contractor difficulty, but the major damage was caused by vandals. DJT. No, it's not. And now you're further defaming David Hearn. And then Donald Trump starts posting more photos and videos of the Reflecting Pool. I mean, we have to understand, folks. He's a criminal. Okay? I mean, let's just pull back for a second. He's a bad human being. Okay? Would we want felons to be, who are serious felons, to be running your organization? I know I believe in rehabilitation. Let me be clear. Trump's clearly not subject to rehabilitation. I believe in rehabilitation. I believe in second chances. Maybe not third chance. I believe in second chances. And so I believe that someone could be a felon and come back and show remorse for what they did, right? I believe in that, but certainly not Trump. And I still don't think that then you should be the president of the United States or maybe a leader of an organization, especially if your felony was for like financial stuff and documents and things that are of import. And then also, look, he's a sexual predator. He's a sexual predator, right? I mean, he was found civilly liable for sexual assault, not just allegations. He was found liable by a federal jury who heard the case where Trump presented evidence, Jean Carroll presented evidence. And by the way, we've heard Trump on tape. He talks about that he grabs women, he sexually assaults them. He grabs them by the genitals because he's rich and you get away with it. He talks about going in and looking at girls naked in beauty pageants because he says you're the host. You get to do that. You get to inspect them naked. I mean, this is a bad guy. So with a sexual predator, does it shock you that the sexual predator who's friends with Epstein is going to cover up the Epstein files? No, that's what they do. That's what they do. They're bad people. What do you think they're going to do? He's a horrible human, scum, human, the worst of the worst type of human. I mean, a felon. He's a felon. The felon, he's going to do great work. He's going to be on. No, I mean, what do you think you happen if you put a criminal in charge of things? Going to behave like a criminal. And as former President Obama said, the presidency brings out your qualities. If you're empathetic, it'll be more empathetic. If you do this, it brings it out more. So if you're a criminal, a crook, and a sexual predator, the presidency brings that out. It makes all of the qualities more pronounced. And that's also what we're seeing. And it's not good. It's why I focus so much on moral character and all of these things that I know corporate news wants to gloss over and be like, oh, well, that's just Donald being Donald. No, let's be honest. These are bad humans. This is a bad This is one of the most vile scumbag humans in world history. And so you're seeing even after his own DOJ, Jeanine Pirro's his lady. You picked her. You could be, she's saying, she said those things, that there's no case at all, that it's not vandals. And so then Trump goes to, I'm showing photos of the grass and the this or the that. And, I think Popok will talk in a little bit as well. It's like, even after the Supreme Court says you lose, you're a sexual abuser, basically, because they didn't take up his appeal. He's been found liable for sexual abuse in the Jean Carroll case. He appealed to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, we don't even want to hear it. We don't want to even hear it. It's not a case that we hear. What do? Then Trump asks for a petition for rehearing on it, and then says, oh, Jean Carroll should not be allowed to take the money that was awarded to her. And she should not be allowed to put it in the S&P 500 because the S&P 500 could crash. Yeah, well, we know it could crash because of you. But who are you to tell your sexual assault victim where she can put the money that she was awarded by a jury? He wrote a motion. He wrote a motion to the appeals court saying that it's unfair that she invested her $5 million in the S&P 500. I mean, this guy's psycho. And then he has a bunch of lawyers who go and fight for this stuff, who fight to destroy the law. So that was Donald Trump's post. And when you talk about his lawyers, at the top right there, you've got Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche is responsible for this entire criminal cartel that's become the DOJ. Don't just call him the DOJ. Call him the criminal cartel that they are. So this is a supercut that they are a racketeering enterprise, for real. They're a criminal enterprise carrying out Donald Trump's criminal orders, his quid pro quos, right? The bribes that lead to pardons. They're covering up the Epstein files. They are a criminal racketeering cartel. Here's the supercut we made that's gone viral at the Midas Touch Network about all these different Trump regime officials. And here's what they've been saying about the Reflecting Pool and the vandals from Caroline, all these scum. Caroline Levitt and all these freaking scum here. This, right? This is the worst, just the worst. You just got to call these people out scum. Right? What's, just freaking awful people. Not in a political way, man. These are horrible people. Here, play this clip.
The vandalism is very real, despite what Tim Walz wants to say. It's an imaginary problem. No, it is not. It's a very real problem.
Reflecting Pool is so beautiful. They tried to destroy it. They cut it up with a buck's knife and tried to destroy it.
The contractors who did the initial work for the Reflecting Pool, are they to blame for the current condition, or is it the vandals?
We had vandalism. No, vandals.
But it peeled off. Why did that happen? Do you know?
It didn't peel off. There was vandalism. There was box cutters. There have been 7 arrests. There was people literally trying to destroy part of a monument. The Reflecting Pool is not just a pool on the mall. It is part of the Lincoln Memorial. And if anybody says that they're going to go and vandalize that, it's no different than if someone was throwing
And
paint
you're
on Lincoln
100%
itself.
sure that what happened with the liner was vandalism. You can prove it.
Oh yeah, absolutely can. And as we drain it, and we've got all the photographs we can see. I mean, there's no possible way.
There are photographs of a person or people cutting a 300 or 350 foot gash in the bottom of the Reflecting Pool?
Dana, I'm not sure why you and others in the media think that you want to keep trying to question whether or not.
And then let me show you why I think state regime media Fox is going to get sued by David Hearn. This is just one of them. Jesse Waters is probably going to get sued. Remember, Jeanine, in a defamation case against if a public figure is bringing a defamation case, you have to show that there's a case called New York Times v. Sullivan. It's called the New York Times v. Sullivan standard. You have to show that the party that defamed you acted with actual malice. Either they intended to do it or they acted in like a reckless disregard. That's the standard. Because we want people to do coverage on public figures, right? David Hearn, I'm not sure if he's a public figure. There's something called a limited public figure, like a public figure for a specific thing. So like during the Olympics, maybe he's a limited public figure because there's attention to him during that period of time as a canoeist. But like being a 2-time Olympic canoeist, I don't think anybody, no offense, David Hearn, knew David Hearn before this, like remembered him. I mean, maybe you did. I don't think you did. It was great that he represented our country in 2 Olympics, but I don't think he was a public figure that people like would talk about him like that. So I think David Hearn would say I'm not a public figure. So I don't have to prove actual malice if I'm suing Fox. I could just show negligence, because if you're not a public figure, you could just show negligence and proceed on a defamation case, that someone acted unreasonably in defaming you, right? And I believe that regardless, though, whether David Hearn has a negligence standard or the actual malice standard in suing Fox and Jesse Waters, I think you check the box. Let's just use the actual malice standard, because if you can meet that threshold, you can meet the negligence threshold, right? So you have Jeanine Pirro from formerly of State Regime Media, who is very close with Jesse Waters. She shows up. She picks the Waters show because of her relationship. She used to be on the panel with him, the 5. You know, they're as close as can be. She was picked because she was a Fox host. She goes on, and they're all chummy with each other, right? And she's like, "Great to see you. I miss you." All of that. Check the box. Check the box. Actual malice, because this thing's contrived. It's set up. You see the conspiracy taking place before your eyes, using Fox for this purpose. And then she goes in and just does the lie. Let me show you what happens here. Play this clip.
I miss you more.
You got to keep Jessica in line.
Yeah.
Maybe come back for a day.
Listen, your show's still great. I love it.
Thank you so much. A lot of people, when this first happened with the pool, didn't believe the president, that there was vandalism. That's not the case.
Yeah. It's not the case at all. In fact, I was at the Reflecting Pool yesterday. There not only is a vandalism that is reflected in today's indictment, but there is a cutting of the liner of the pool at the base of the pool for several yards across the pool. And someone was intent on doing incredible damage to the pool. But what we've seen after are other people who want to do continuing damage. And one of the biggest problems, and one of the ugliest things that I think is out there, are people trying to destroy monuments and statues, part of our history. And for some reason, they think they have the right to destroy things, when the truth is these are national monuments, they're sacred monuments. And so we're going to make sure that the law is followed and that people recognize that D.C. is not the place to come and commit your crime. President has repaired 50 parks and, 48, I think it's 22 fountains and 48 monuments.
The fountains look beautiful by the train station.
They are gorgeous.
That used to be dilapidated.
Terrible. D.C. is safe and beautiful. And that's what the president's doing. And when these anarchists come and we have witnesses, they're like, oh, he didn't do anything. Not only that, there are people working in the National Park Service who come here, they volunteer to work in D.C. and to get berated by these people as though they have the right to destroy a monument. No, you don't.
We saw a lot of this start around the BLM riots.
Now, here's a montage of Donald Trump constantly lying about this. Here's the CNN montage of Trump saying it's vandals, vandals, vandals. Here, play this clip.
We had vandalism. No, vandals. We have I think 290, 300-foot slit right through it, probably a box cutter or a knife of some kind.
Somebody went in with a knife and cut it. They cut it up good. And then they cut a 200, 350-foot slip in the form of lots of little slips, real horrible stuff.
They took razors and they started cutting this, very expensive stuff.
We caught some people vandalizing our beautiful reflecting pool.
They tried to destroy it. They cut it up with a box knife and tried to destroy it.
And then again, all these social media posts of Donald Trump saying it's vandals, it's vandals, it's vandals. But let's remember, as our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, says, Trump has been falsely accusing people of crimes for decades. Remember the Central Park Five? This is what Trump does. He accuses people of crime. He's a defamer. He is a blamer. He is a destroyer. He brings frivolous cases. And now he's used the DOJ to bring these frivolous cases. And because of his own incompetence in this reflecting pool, painting it blue thing he wanted to do, and he kept on talking about it, David Hearn, an innocent man, was criminally prosecuted. Fabricated evidence was brought before a grand jury. And it was all false. It was all false. Pirro needs to be disbarred. State regime media should be sued. This is an impeachable offense for Donald Trump. He's behind it. He's showing he's posting and saying that he's behind it. But then it goes to Todd Blanche. So let's talk about Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche's confirmation hearing has been moved to Tuesday. Now, Todd Blanche should not be confirmed, period. He's not qualified for this position at all. He is Donald Trump, his qualification is he's Trump's criminal defense lawyer who lost the criminal case, and Trump was convicted of multiple felonies. Let's remember that. Blanche wasn't a good lawyer. I mean, his cross-examination was horrible, really bad. He's not a good lawyer. He wasn't good on his feet. He's a very bad lawyer. But in any event, he's corrupt as hell. He was a former federal prosecutor, so lots of feds were like, man, this guy is like just destroying the DOJ from within because he's so craven and cares so much about power. Sick. What a sicko. And then Blanche has been responsible for covering up the Epstein files. He re-traumatized the victims. Notice that Tillis of North Carolina and Cornyn of Texas, this is why they're horrible people too, horrible people. As long as Blanche met with the survivors, regardless of what happened, that checked that box for Blanche and Tillis. Did you meet with the survivors? Yeah. Okay, well, what happened at the meeting? When he met with the survivors, he re-traumatized them. He crossed his arm. I'm going to make this short. Don't expect anything from me. He re-traumatized sex assault victims who were raped as children. He re-traumatized women who were raped when they were little girls. He re-traumatized. He was abhorrent the way he treated them. That interaction should be disqualifying. And of course, covering up the child sex trafficking. But just like they claim with the reflecting pool, trust me, just trust me. I alone, literally Trump, who's bankrupted everything, who's bankrupting our country right now, who lies about literally every word out of every sound, syllable, all lie. I'm the only one who tells the truth. Really? So trust me on this one. Just trust me. So you had Donald Trump post this morning. This was his latest post on this. If Senators Cornyn and Tillis, both upset because I wouldn't endorse them, they lost and quit respectively, aren't going to approve Todd Blanche, one of the most respected professionals, according to everybody in the country, to be the United States Attorney General, then I will keep Todd as the acting Attorney General and push hard to get the anti-weaponization bill, which takes care of those who have been so badly treated by the crooked Joe Biden and Obama administration. I get nothing, although I was treated horribly past. Todd Blanche was a voice of reason. I will immediately be back on the table. And I will get it done. Thank you for your attention to this matter. It's not on the table. No one wants to pass an anti-weaponization bill, even the Republicans in the Senate, that gives money to the January 6th insurrectionists and which waives any liability that you have for not paying your taxes. That gives you a get out of jail free you don't have to pay your taxes card, okay? Republicans don't want to pass that bill right now. That bill's not going to pass at all. Not going to pass the Senate, not going to pass that, probably not going to pass the House, okay? So what are you talking about? And the only thing, this is why I'm not saying, yay, Tillis, yay, Cornyn. They said, Blanche, we'll confirm you. Just put in writing that the anti-weaponization fund, which isn't that at all, and giving Trump immunity from not paying taxes, okay? Just say that that's gone. You've made an oral representation of that, but just put it in writing. Put it in writing. Because there's also a red flag that on Friday, you know what else happened as well? Donald Trump filed an appeal in the Southern District of Florida in the case where the anti-weaponization fund and the deal that he doesn't have to pay his taxes, or he won't be investigated or audited for not paying his taxes. That federal judge, Kathleen Williams, voided the settlement, said it was collusive, and issued sanctions against Trump and Trump's lawyer and everybody, right? So What did Trump do? Filed an appeal. They filed a notice of appeal, Donald Trump, regarding the ruling of Kathleen Williams. And let me just read it for you, what they say here. This they say, the ruling by Judge Williams voiding the settlement agreement rests on the grievous legal error that because Trump supervises the executive branch, he and the United States necessarily possess the same legal interests and cannot be adverse to each other. That is wrong. Trump asserted a personal claim arising from the theft of his own tax information. The IRS and U.S. Department of Treasury represented the sovereign interest in public funds in federal law. Donald Trump, Eric Trump, and the Trump Organization asserted their own independent claims. Presidential supervision did not erase those rights or merge those interests. The sanctions order nevertheless erroneously treated its novel theory of adversity as the starting point and then refracted the facts through the mistaken lens. Refracted, when that lawyer was writing that, refracted the facts through like that play of words. No, we don't like that play of words. You're an idiot. We don't like that play of words because we know that Donald Trump did a collusive settlement. We know he settled with himself so that he and Eric and Don Jr. and the Trump Organization could avoid paying taxes and could avoid the ramifications of their horrible behavior. What are you talking about? The sanctions order, erroneously refracting facts. Settlement became proof of the collusion, even though there was none. Potential weak defenses became proof that the claims were fictitious, which they were not. And ordinary professional relationships became proof of coordinate. Oh, this was just ordinary professional relationships. The United States president, in his personal capacity, suing the United States government for a frivolous case that was 6 years past the statute of limitation, where Donald Trump was the president when the underlying conduct took place many years ago, and where the Justice Department does not issue the most basic motion to dismiss, but instead enters into a settlement waiving the taxes for the current president. This is ordinary professional relationship. So I just want to read that to you because that's what they're filing in court because they're appealing it. The same way with like Jean Carroll, they lose, and they try to appeal forever. Frankly, the same way that Donald Trump's been audited for 20 years because he just never stops, the kind of constant barrage and flooding the zone with lies and litigation and lawsuits for the past taxes that he hasn't paid. This is what he's going to do here while not paying his taxes, in my opinion. That's the game plan behind all of this. And so Donald Trump, in the post that I just read, his position is the following. His position is, well, now that Cornyn and Tillis don't want to approve Blanche, well, that makes me want the anti-weaponization fund even more. I was even thinking about maybe not wanting it. But now, because of Cornyn and Tillis, now I want it. And he's like, I get nothing. No, you get everything. What are you talking about? You get everything. You get a waiver of all of your tax liability. That is a significant thing. Let me be very, that could be billions of dollars, as I said before. And there are some people who are like, well, would David Hearn qualify for the anti-weaponization fund? Let me be clear. There's a process. If you believe that you are unfairly treated by the federal government and you have a claim, you don't go to weaponization funds. You know what you do? You file a lawsuit. First, you have to file what's called a federal government tort claim, where you have to assert, give notice, and then you can file a lawsuit against the government, where there's a judge, a jury, there's rules of evidence. There are witnesses. There's rules like you can't have hearsay, or Trump can't pick the board that awards the money, right? It's a jury. There's a reason why Donald Trump has lost almost all of his cases that go before a jury. Trump hates going before juries. Trump loves filing lawsuits and then threatening and intimidating people and then hoping he can just flood the zone with paperwork and all of these and all of this distraction and delay to tie you up and make you spend a lot of money. That's what Trump does. That's his MO. He hates when he goes before the juries, he loses. When you have real rules of evidence and good, accurate information and jurors assessing the behavior without the propaganda, in my opinion, he's almost always lost. And has the biggest losses there. And that's why he's afraid of deposition. He doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to do any of that. That's why he wants to have his board. So what David Hearn can do is what the January 6th insurrectionists could do. Except David Hearn has a case and they don't. You know why they don't? Because they were convicted. They either pled guilty, or jurors convicted them. Every jury convicted every one of those J6 insurrectionists, and for very serious crimes, a lot of them as well. They had their day in court. The way Trump had his day in court for Jean Carroll, and Trump lost. A jury found him liable for sexual assault and defamation. That's the way our systems work. You can no longer say, oh, well, those are just allegations. No. She went in court. A jury found him liable, civilly liable. The end. That's the way our system works. Okay. And, so, that's Cornyn and Tillis's view that he needs to sign this, that there's a written document. Trump doesn't want a written document. I pointed out why before as well. The agreement between Trump and the federal government says that the only way to void the agreement is with a written document. So Trump's whole scam is like, well, we'll make an oral representation that it'll be overturned, but I don't want to put it in writing, because if I put it in writing, then it actually gets overturned. And Trump wants to keep the argument that since there's no writing voiding the agreement, he doesn't have to pay his, he could potentially avoid paying his taxes. And one of the biggest fake outs, the smoke screen, are the January 6th insurrectionists. Just like on J6, they were his pawns when he said, I'm going to go march with you. No, he didn't. They're his pawns here also. Get people outraged about that, which we should be, but focus less on the pardon that Donald Trump is giving himself, the super pardon as it's being called, where he doesn't have to pay tax immunity, where he doesn't have to pay taxes, and he gets all of audits waived. That's what he wants you not to talk about. But that is what he really cares about the most. That could be, again, not just hundreds of millions, but billions of dollars in value that he's trying to extract from himself after he's made billions of dollars on these quid pro quo deals right here. And so you've got responses from Tillis saying, despite comments as late as yesterday that the fund is dead, Trump clearly intends to resurrect the payout pot for punks, either by inappropriately establishing another bogus fund or pushing Congress to vote for a bill that the majority of Republicans would be against. It's unfortunate that Blanche, who I consider qualified for the job, would not be confirmed because this reversal. Hopefully we could resolve this by Tuesday. What do you mean he's qualified for the job? What are you talking about? This is the guy. I mean, how could you post that on the very same day? That's why you can't give Tillis or Cornyn really that much credit. You give him a scintilla of credit. But on the same day, the Reflecting Pool case, which Blanche oversees Piro, right? The Reflecting Pool case gets dismissed. Egregious. This guy's qualified. Just, put this in writing. Look, this should be in writing, but the guy's not qualified. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to pass it over to Michael Popok right now to finish up the show. Hit subscribe here. Oh, did you get your copy of WTF America? Have you got your copy of WTF America? The book I wrote with my brothers. I think there's a link in the description below. Order it, pre-order it now. The book comes out in October. But what our publisher says, these pre-orders are really important to determine what kind of promotion is needed. It's really helpful that you do the pre-order. Put in the comments if you've done the pre-order. We're grateful for you. We're grateful for you. If you or someone you know has been injured in an auto accident, car accident, trucking accident, if you've been injured by the negligence of a third party, reach out to the Popok firm. We'll put the Popok firm number, call or text, or visit the Popok firm's website. And we'll also put a link in the description. Don't be shy. Reach out to Popok. Consultation is free, okay? Also, subscribe to Legal AF YouTube and subscribe to Legal AF Substack. All right? We'll come right back. I'm going to pass this over to Michael Popok.
This episode, it's brought to you by IQ Bar. Our exclusive snack, hydration, and coffee sponsor, IQ Bar Protein Bars, IQ Mix Hydration Mixes, and IQ Joe Mushroom Coffees are the delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel you need to win your day. I've been looking for better grab-and-go options, and I like having convenient snacks that fit into my day. The Ultimate Sampler Pack lets you try everything with 9 IQ bars, 8 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. I also like that IQ Bars plant protein bars have plenty of plant protein, tons of fiber, and no added sugar. With over 20,000 5-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are fueling their busy lifestyles with IQ Bars brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. Their Ultimate Sampler Pack includes all 3. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products, including the Ultimate Sampler Pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text Legal AF to 64,000. Text LEGALAF to 64,000. One more time, that's Legal AF to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. I love our cat, Chanel, but I definitely don't love everything that comes with having a cat, especially the litter box. Since switching her to Smalls, though, I've noticed a real difference. Smalls fresh cat food is protein packed, made with preservative-free, 100% human-grade ingredients you'd find in your fridge, and it's delivered right to your door. My cat goes absolutely feral for these recipes, and I've noticed more energy, a softer coat, and a whole lot less stink. It makes sense because Smalls' fresh, gently cooked food is made without preservatives, so cats get more of the nutrition they actually need. In fact, after switching to Smalls, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvements. And if you're worried your cat might be picky, you can try Smalls risk-free. They'll refund you if your cat won't eat their food. So stop serving your little carnivore a bowl of processed shortcuts for a limited time because you are a Legal AF listener. Get 60% off your first order, plus free shipping and free treats for life when you head to smalls.com/legalaf. That's 60% off your first order, plus free shipping and free treats for life when you head to smalls.com/legalaf. Thanks, Ben, and welcome back to Legal AF. Well, this is exactly what it looks like when you have the two founders of Legal AF, Ben and Michael, taking some needed time off with their families, 9 hours apart, but both being dedicated to bringing you the content that you deserve. The rule of law and the intersection of law and politics doesn't take a holiday, so we can't either. I'm glad you're back. Let me pick up a little bit where Ben left off, and I'll cover a couple of other topics. I want to talk about the Katie Phang versus Todd Blanche impact, with new documents being finally provided to Judge Sullivan and what it means for his confirmation process. I also want to talk about Jean Carroll, and that case now taking a different turn as it relates to the $91 million she's owed for being the first and only person in America who's ever had a jury find that Donald Trump is a sex abuser. Then I want to talk about Kash Patel and defamation a couple of ways. But let me tie most of this together with Todd Blanche, because Todd Blanche is ultimately Kash Patel's boss, and Todd Blanche also is connected, of course, to the defendant in the Katie Phang lawsuit, in which she obtained a preliminary injunction in order to get Judge Sullivan to order the 5 categories of information and documents be finally provided to the American people, and that Todd Blanche be found in contempt. This is not about trying to, throw a monkey wrench into his confirmation process. I think he's doing a pretty good job of doing that all by himself. I mean, as Ben touched on, and I'll follow up here, I don't think he's got the votes. We'll find out more as the week progresses, whether Cornyn and Tillis will come around and give him the votes. But it is a spectacularly amazing thing and a defeat so far for Donald Trump that on a Senate Judiciary Committee that he controls the votes on, he can't rustle up 11 out of 12 votes to get this guy confirmed already. And it's talking about Todd Blanche like he's some football coach that's about to get axed in social media posts. I mean, the damning faint praise of Todd Blanche by Donald Trump. Well, we'll just try it again in 6 or 8 months. You know, it's like a football owner, team owner saying out loud, well, I don't think we're going to get rid of coach in the middle of the season. He's doing a pretty good job. And the next day the guy has a press conference and says he wants to spend more time with his family. I think that's where Todd Blanche is right now. And he's getting undermined, his legs cut out from under him by Donald Trump, who's busy telling the world that he does not want to get rid of the Jan 6 fund, but more particularly does not want to get rid of the one paragraph amendment to the Jan 6 fund settlement entered into by Todd Blanche. I mean, that obviously was the quid pro quo for Todd Blanche to get the job. I mean, he got passed over 4 times. This is what it took for him to get the nomination in Donald Trump's eyes, because I think he's also thought he's a little bit of a loser. He got passed over the first time when Aileen Cannon was touted to be the attorney general. Yeah, the Mar-a-Lago judge. He got passed over again when Matt Gaetz was the nominee. Didn't even make it to the committee, that one. It's pretty tough sledding when you're getting passed over for somebody who's been accused of child sex trafficking. And then, all right, well, Todd Blanche's like, okay, now my turn. Nope. Pam Bondi, come on down. You're the next attorney general. And then even when she gets canned, he doesn't immediately turn to his number 2 in the office, Todd Blanche. He starts holding a Hunger Games style tryout. Maybe Jeanine Pirro, maybe Harmeet Dillon, maybe Lee Zeldin, the EPA director. Let's see how low Todd Blanche will go for me. Oh, he'll give me the immunity and the release for my family and me of hundreds of billions of dollars of tax liability and criminal liability. Todd, where have you been all my life? That's what we just watched. And now, whenever Trump gets that whiff of somebody's a loser, whether it's Alina Habba or Lindsay Halligan or Tulsi Gabbard or Kristi Noem, their shelf life is not that long. I think Blanche is starting to fall into that category. And and it's not helping him that as he's telling the people that he needs the votes from, Senator Tillerson Cornyn, that he's killing the Jan 6 fund, he's got Donald Trump out there saying, I want the Jan 6 fund. And he's got Donald Trump's lawyers, obviously with Todd Blanche's approval, filing notices of appeal to keep the Jan 6 fund alive in Judge Williams' Miami case. Like, either Todd Blanche knew about it and has effectively lied to Cornyn and Tillis about the filing keeping the Jan 6 fund alive when he's telling them it's dead, or he didn't know about it, and I don't know which is worse. And he's, of course, connected back to Katie Phang, the intrepid reporter, friend of mine here on the Midas Touch Network, who has a successful case. She's won several times in front of Judge Sullivan, including a preliminary injunction that requires the Department of Justice to comply with an act of Congress, a law, the Epstein File Transparency Act. And in order to do that, he had to produce just 5 categories of documents. Documents in and around a sex torture video, documents around an international child sex trafficking ring that were in a foreign language, like translate them, will you? Documents about handwritten 302 FBI interview notes about a woman who says that when she was a teenager, barely 13, she was sexually abused by Donald Trump, and the redaction log that's supposed to list why 200,000 pages of the Epstein files, representing a little bit less than 10%, have not been produced at all. Why have they been blacked out? And they didn't do any of those things. They didn't translate the documents, which the judge told them to. They refused to produce the documents. They refused to produce the privilege log, because I don't think they ever did it, the redaction log. And they're still fighting over which and then they hide behind the victims. Well, we don't want to produce these because the victims, were complicit in some of the activities. I'm like, what are you even talking about? So finally, Todd Blanche, or his number 2, Stan Woodward, submitted with about 32 minutes to spare on a deadline set by Judge Sullivan, categories of documents for in-camera, meaning only the judge looks at, review. I've looked at the emails. They have to do with, some of them are about the sex torture video. Some of them involved Epstein and victims when he had those victims under psychological, monetary, financial, emotional pressure and his thumb. And so some of those young girls were doing things that in retrospect were him manipulating them to help bring new girls into the child sex trafficking ring. But they can't be blamed. They were psychologically tortured by Epstein, who had their passports in one hand and their visas in another and their finances in a third and squeezed. And so if you see an email out of context, like, oh, look, she was participating in it. No, she wasn't participating in it. She was being coerced into doing it by a master manipulator and predator. In fact, one of the survivors out of the 1,400 came forward and filed a motion to intervene to convince Judge Sullivan to keep her name out of it, to keep her name redacted, because she was manipulated by him and she would be embarrassed and re-traumatized if they were released. But the fact that they even submitted more documents to the judge, but I don't think this digs them out of their hole, because the judge didn't ask for more information about their failure to comply with his order to translate documents. They got the last word. It was 1.5 pages of gobbledygook, of ridiculousness. And that's one. And 2, he didn't ask for more documents about, why they didn't prepare the redaction log. So it's obvious what he's going to do. He's going to make a ruling early this week. We'll follow it on Legal AF and on the Midas Touch Network about the documents that were submitted. He'll make some hard calls about this document and that document. And then he's going to lower the boom. So they shouldn't be surprised. He gave them the last word, but he's going to lower the boom on them. And I think in contempt for Todd Blanche, just in time for his confirmation vote. I think that confirmation vote, they're announcing it might be Tuesday, could be Wednesday. Stay close to me. Stay close to our Substack on Legal AF, because I will keep you posted. And we will put up live on the Legal AF YouTube channel a live stream, which I'll host, of the vote, of the confirmation vote. I mean, I just had, Cory Booker on about the upcoming vote and the importance of it. And here's what Senator Booker had to say.
Yeah, this is really one of those times where you have to fight every battle. You're going to lose a lot, but you're going to win some. And the strength that any individual senator has is magnified and multiplied when people express the same outrage at extraordinary numbers. And I've seen a backlash of people change his tariff policy, change when he was making cuts to Medicaid. He has been stopped or at least delayed in a lot of the awful things he wants to do by extraordinary people. In his first term, remember, he wanted to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. And I've never seen this place. Even now, 13 years here, I've never seen as many people descend on Washington, D.C., little kids in wheelchairs. They call themselves the little lobbyists, rolling up to senators and pleading with them not to take away their health care. And it worked. It changed the mind of 3 of my colleagues, and that was stopped. And so that's why I want everybody who's listening, the thing they want you to do is to underestimate your power, the power of your voice. When you stand up, when you speak up, it makes a difference. And on this issue, with the highest office, law enforcement office in the land, a person that is incredibly responsible for our public safety, our national security, we cannot let somebody as dangerous as Todd Blanche get there.
So this is all going to time out in and around and I think a contempt order, in and around the vote. And he's going to have to answer ultimately for, as Ben pointed out earlier, why are they appealing the ruling by Judge Williams, which called the Jan 6 settlement process tainted with fraud and at least bad faith, and announced that it couldn't be used as a justification for the settlement at all. Like, why is he continuing to defend that while he's telling Cornyn and Tillis that he's going to kill it? Makes absolutely no sense, but that's the world that we are in. Let me now move to Jean Carroll, who was that Elle magazine editor who bumped into Donald Trump in 1996 at the revolving door of the Bergdorf Goodman department store, catty-corner to Trump Tower, and had the misfortune of having that interaction turn terribly dark and violent. She was sexually abused in a dressing room by Donald Trump and a jury of 9 after several weeks of testimony, not just Jean Carroll. So it wasn't just he said, she said. It was several witnesses who she confided in at the time as outcry witnesses that she was sexually abused. Really, as the judge pointed out, technically raped by Donald Trump. And that accumulation of evidence and other evidence about Donald Trump's past bad acts and past sexual misconduct convinced a jury she's the only person to ever have Donald Trump branded a sex abuser and predator. And she had 2 judgments that she obtained from 2 separate juries. She went 18-0 in federal court in 2 separate federal juries a couple of months apart. She got her $5.8 million, which was about the $5 million which ran with interest about a week or so ago. And that has to do with Donald Trump sexually abusing her, the punitive damages he owes her, and defaming her after he was president. He then continued to defame her, and there was a second trial, including about when he was president the first time, and he testified in that case, and the jury hated him and ultimately, and believed fully Jean Carroll, and awarded her $83.5 million, which is now about $91 million running with interest. So he lost at the United States Supreme Court level on the first case, arguing that evidence shouldn't have been brought in about him being a previous predator. That was really the argument. And even the MAGA 6 on the Supreme Court were like, pass. None of them helped him. None of them wrote a dissent. No, they just said, denied. We're not granting that petition. Now, the second, he just filed a new petition for writ of certiorari, which is the way you take an appeal or requested appeal at the Supreme Court. And there he's arguing immunity. Surprise, that he had immunity when he was president. He could defame anybody, effectively. And so this is now going to tie into the criminal immunity, even though this is a civil case, and also another form of immunity that all federal workers, no matter if you're badge number 1, the president of the United States, all the way down to, the other person, it's called Westfall immunity. It has to do with the name of a case years ago. And Westfall immunity is enjoyed by all federal workers, and you can't sue them. The federal government can intervene on their behalf and toss them. And therefore they enjoy immunity if it is within the course and scope of their duties. So the question is defaming Jean Carroll about her appearance, her being too ugly to have been sexually abused. I mean, that's effectively what he's saying. Is that going to be within the scope of his authority or duties to give him Westfall immunity? And he also waived it. He raised these things 15 months basically after the judgment. I mean, after the verdict, the judgment, everything. They're like, oh yeah, I was president. It's a little late. We have a concept in the law called latches or immunity and waiver. So there's a waiver argument. So I'm not sure he's got 5 votes to get the petition for writ of certiorari granted on that particular one. But if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in about 2 weeks. There's a conference on August 17th. We'll see if they take it up then. If they do, pardon the lighting out here, if they do, it'll be heard in the fall, early winter, with a decision in spring or summer of next year, which means this 83-year-old victim is going to have to continue to wait for her money. And they could always kick the can down the road. I mean, in the first case, they kicked the can in 13 separate conferences between February and June before they voted against it. They could do it here too. They could just not hear it and then deny it at the end. That may happen here as well. But we want Jean Carroll to get the money justice demands that we certainly call for it here on Illegal AF, the podcast. Let me end with Kash Patel. Remember him? FBI director. Yeah, so he's in the news for a couple of defamation cases. First, in probably one of the funniest laugh out loud cases I've heard of, he went after Jim Stewartson. Jim Stewartson, if you don't know him, is a disinformation researcher who believes in defending democracy through sarcasm and parody. You know, his profile picture is South Park, somebody from or him as South Park. And he wrote a couple of things about Kash Patel that got him sued for defamation, calling him a googly-eyed Kremlin asset. In fact, he's now switched it to googly-eyed Kremlin, pardon me, it's late at night, bitch. Googly-eyed Kremlin bitch, suggesting that Kash Patel, in his opinion, based on his performance, takes his talking points from Vladimir Putin. Look, for years, people thought, including in the FBI, Donald Trump was a Russian asset, so commenting on it is not really defamatory. He also made some other comments about him, but mainly the googly-eyed Kremlin bitch is the one that Kash Patel didn't like. So he sued him. Now, Patel, which I'd forgotten, I guess lives in Nevada, Las Vegas. Should have been suspicious already. A Las Vegas gambler as our FBI director. So he sues him in his home state in Nevada. And he actually gets a default judgment against Jim Stewartson. But finally, Jim gets a lawyer, and the lawyer files a motion to dismiss and vacate the default judgment, because the default judgment meaning Jim didn't answer the lawsuit. And he said there's no personal jurisdiction over Mr. Stewartson. He has no connectivity to Nevada. This isn't a Nevada issue. Nevadans don't care. This is about Kash Patel. And there's no Nevada, stake in this. And finally, the judge in the case, Judge Gordon, vacated the default judgment and dismissed the defamation case. It can be refiled. They can start over again somewhere where Jim Stewartson lives, but they can't sue in Nevada. Now, one of the funniest things I saw was Jim's response to this, which is not actually legally right, but did make me laugh out loud, so I wanted to share it with you. It's not legally right because he didn't get a ruling in his favor on the substance of what he wrote, that's not defamatory. It's like that it's protected opinion or sarcasm or parody, although I think that's where that would have went. But he did post on his, so we'll put it up on the screen. He did post on his screen, now that my case is settled, I think he means dismissed, you are free to refer to @FBI Director Kash as a googly-eyed Kremlin bitch and a traitor without fear of legal repercussions. That's not exactly true, Jim, although it is hilarious and very, very funny. In fact, Jim has put up his own version of the analysis around. If you go to his X account, he also just posted, I wrote about the reaction to Kash Patel getting his frivolous lawsuit thrown out after I called him this is like a drinking game, a googly-eyed Kremlin bitch. When people try to take away your freedom, mockery is a powerful tool. You really cannot do it enough. Please subscribe. I give the guy a lot of credit on that. Now, Kash Patel has his own case also against the Atlantic magazine and Sarah Fitzpatrick for having done a whole article about his drinking problem, because she says she had sourced at least 20 different people inside and outside of the FBI that said he has an excessive drinking problem. He drinks to excess. He thought he was fired when he forgot his password into the FBI account and had a freak out. A lot of freakouts going on in the White House. He, in addition to that, he had, according to her reporting, he had to be woken up. They almost battered down the door with a battering ram because he was going to miss meetings. He's been known to be publicly intoxicated in Nevada, Las Vegas nightclubs and lounges, and he didn't like that. He didn't like the questions about him squiring his girlfriend around town and on the People's Jet with taxpayer dollars. So he sued The Atlantic. Now, The Atlantic filed their motion to dismiss. It's a good thing. It's an appropriate thing because she has good reporting and she shouldn't be sued. He tried to dox her by posting her address when he made his filings, and that got caught by the judge and by The Atlantic and sealed. And this is what they said. This is the quote from the editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, of The Atlantic magazine. If Director Patel did not want to face this process, he should not have filed this suit. These legal filings are consistent with the promise I made to our staff and to our readers in May. We will defend The Atlantic and its staff vigorously. We will not be intimidated by acts of politically motivated retaliation. We will continue to cover the FBI professionally, fairly, and thoroughly, and we will continue to practice journalism in the public interest. They're also seeking a stay of discovery until their motion to dismiss is granted or denied, which I think is appropriate in this case as well. That case is just a way for Kash Patel to try to run interference, to do a cover-up for what could be the public intoxication problem he has. I mean, he's been challenged by Sheldon Whitehouse and others to take and Jamie Raskin to take a lie detector test, to take an intoxication test to find out if he has a substance abuse problem, and he denies all of it. He refuses to do it. And yet he's got people in the White House that continue to protect him. Kash Patel's FBI director makes us less secure as a nation, and he needs to go. And his attempts to use Donald Trump's own defamation playbook to intimidate the press or people who parody him must be ground to a halt and come to an end. And so we wanted to cover these things today. Ben had some opportunity to do his part, turned it over to me with a toss over to take advantage of us both trying to spend a little time with our family, but more importantly, keeping Legal AF alive. And that is so important right now. And I'm glad that you're here. So many different ways to support what we do, as we touched on earlier. Hit the subscribe button for Legal AF. We're at 1,180,000 subscribers. We're going to hit about 1.5 million before the midterms, maybe even 2 million with your help. It's all free. It really costs you nothing, but means the world to us. It is very important to us to continue to grow our pro-democracy channel. I also curate the Legal AF Substack, and we're in the top 30 of all U.S. news and politics Substacks, 8 or 10 new pieces of content every day, including a live report that I do every day to catch you up on the news, sometimes with guests. Sometimes I ride solo. And then, of course, we've got a new relaunch of our old X account, this time rebranded as Legal AF Clips, which is the best of all interview and other video clips that you can watch on X. Just go to Legal AF MTN, Legal AF MTN, and we're trying to grow that audience as well for Legal AF Clips. And so I'm so glad you're going to be seeing me in this, either in this location or another one for the next couple of weeks, but I wouldn't let you down by not doing my work and not doing what I need to do to keep you uplifted and get you the information you need without smoke or sunshine. So until my next report, this is Michael Popok, and for Ben Meiselas, for Legal AF, the podcast. Shout out to the Mighty and the Legal AFers.